Hi, everybody. This is Addison Shonland with my wonderful friends from India, from Sarin Company. And guys, it's great to see you. We've been away for a while. I guess we had a summer break. Today is October 22nd, and we're going to talk about some activities in the Indian market. So obviously the big news is the privatization of Air India, something I don't think we were expecting to see in our lifetimes. How many times have we been around the block on that story?
Well, many. It's at least in our lifetime. It's just been a dream.
So it's back. The Air India goes back to the family that started it all.
It does. It does, and on a strange sense, not commercially minded, not economically minded. It's a good feeling because we've grown up listening to stories about Air India being, a child of the Tatas, and let's see. They were, in my mind, that was a very different era. Let's see what they can do with it now.
Well, I think that if we see, Nitin, if we see how well they've managed brand-wise, operationally-wise with Vistara, maybe not financially, but they've managed to build something quite successful.
I agree. They've got everything lined up for them. They're in the hospitality business. They run the world's best hotels. So there's no doubt that they can pull this off. It's really the economics about it that comes down. Aviation is all about economics. Again, that's a no-brainer. But hopefully they can make that work and bring their service in at a level which is at par with some of the best in the world, and make some money off it. So I'm very hopeful. I'll be very happy personally to put all my money into an Indian carrier and fly them all the time rather than going to the Middle East.
So where does Vistara fit into the picture?
Well, let me take that first. I know Vin and I have a bit of divergent opinions about that, but I sincerely believe that you would have to be a fool to get rid of the Air India brand. So the real value, in my opinion, is Air India. It's like it's you are the national carrier, but you're not the national carrier. You see, you've got the country's name in it. So I don't know what's going to happen, to be very honest, but it's very likely that everything is going to be consolidated into one large airline, in my opinion, which is going to be Air India. So we might not see Vistara around too much longer, but then there's so many questions. What happens to Singapore Airlines?
Sure.
Their stake in Vistara, and but I'm assuming they have some plan in mind.
Okay.
I mean, and going back to the economics really of the whole sort of this privatization. So in my mind, the issue really with Air India, apart from things like, deteriorating service standards, which is what some people have spoken about over the last couple of decades, the real issue was the debt. They had about 45,000 crores of debt. And, for an airline in India where the margins are so thin, I mean, if you start your month off with most of your cash flow going into servicing debt, how are you supposed to then invest in product and services and enhancements and frills? You see what I mean? And because they were a full service airline, every time they needed to do something else, i.e. to refurbish planes or add a new service, they had to go back and take on more debt. So now what's happened is with the privatization, only 1/3 of the debt is actually been taken over by the Tatas. Almost 2/3 of the debt is actually going to be taken care of by the government of India. So it's in an SPV, and how and when the government will pay it off is not the Tata's problem. So economically, I think the Tatas got a great deal. And yes, to go back to what Nitin was saying, they have the expertise, they have the acumen, they have the passion. More importantly, I think, for the Air India brand, and it's their legacy. So they will obviously restore it back to its glory.
How about laying off some people?
Well, interestingly,
I think it's go ahead.
Yeah, well, I won't say it's inevitable, but I can tell you that people at Air India people at AirAsia India, which is majority Tata owned, and it is alleged that Tata is going to buy out the remaining 15% that the AirAsia group has. Everybody seems to be slightly on the edge depending on what this sort of realignment will look like. So is there going to be one full service airline which would encapsulate Air India and Vistara, and a low-cost airline which will encapsulate Air India Express and AirAsia India? Or is there going to be one big airline? So this alignment, in my opinion, and I've said this before, I mean, this sort of realignment of airlines will go down in aviation history. And I would be extremely pleased as an Indian to see that the Tatas pull this off, and really Air India finds its place in the world as one of the top airlines, as it was at that point.
But I also, to answer your question, I do see a lot of people being laid off. It's just completely overstaffed. The airline is completely overstaffed. There's going to be a big pick and choose between the efficient staff versus look, we're coming from a government-run airline where no one gets fired, which is funded by the taxpayer. And overnight, we're going into a private player who is, okay, he may have a restriction for a year or two to not fire anyone, but the moment that restriction's over, I can assure you he's got his people on the job to see who is going to leave and who is not going to leave. So that's pure economics, and that's what's going to happen, and that's what we need. The reason why Air India had gone down to the dumps was because of that cushy comfort all the employees had, that they can't get fired. So
you guys saw the picture yesterday of what is happening in Rome, where a whole part of our ex-Alitalia flight attendants decided to strip down to their undies to protest. I mean, come on. You know? It's not their fault that the airline went bust, but at the other hand, they were part of it because the company was overstaffed.
I mean, you can't. I'm, to be very honest, I'm very amazed that we have some employees who we've spoken to who are very happy about this, because in my head it had become such an old, village bicycle. I hate using that term, but it was just so tired. Air India was used by bureaucrats. It was used by people who were, who were not paying so much money. The first class cabin on Air India was always full of, free upgrades, silly things like that. I've personally been denied a paid upgrade into first class at a check-in counter, saying, "Oh no, I'm sorry, we're totally full," and it was completely empty, and we had, a big bureaucrat or a number of bureaucrats who were occupying that.
Right.
So it's just
you use
silly
the word,
things like that.
Nitin, you used the word used. I would have said abused would be
true.
the right term. I mean,
I
happened in South African Airways. All these government airlines are seen as like the private jet of the politicians. That's why states need to get out of the airline business, because shareholders have a very different value proposition than stakeholders. Anyway, enough on the Air India thing. I think we're in violent agreement about the change. I think it's a positive thing for everybody. But you do have a new thing kicking in there, ACASA. I don't know that the market needs another one, because India seems to, nobody loves to start an airline better there than maybe in the States. I mean, you've got a lot of stuff bubbling.
Well, I mean, if you see, we're a country of 1.4 billion people, and barely 2 to 3% of them actually fly. Unlike the US, if I was to draw a contrast, the backbone of the US sort of transport system is aviation. For us, it's the train, it's the railway network. So, the ACASA allegedly is an ultra low cost airline. So they would really want to ensure people who actually take the train are the ones who actually take flight. So if you look at the opportunity, it's amazing. However, that comes with a whole bunch of problems wherein there's unending competition, cutthroat competition, some of the cheapest fares in the world, and costs, like some of the highest costs, especially when it comes to aviation turbine fuel.
The fuel tax there is staggering.
It's staggering. There's no doubt.
That I find so amazing. If you fly a turboprop, you don't pay the tax. If you fly a turbofan, you do pay the tax.
Yeah.
Dude, it's the same thing. The one
well,
turbine has a propeller and the other one doesn't. Like,
But is it a turbofan or only on those routes, the
it's
certain
the
routes
Udan
that
routes. It's
Udan
the
routes, right? Yeah.
regional routes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
jet engine
yeah.
versus a turboprop. I mean, it's the same technology. They burn the same fuel.
Yeah. Well, I guess I
Well,
think
you
you're
see,
referring
that's
to the regional. Sorry.
yeah. No. I was just highlighting the fact that that's slightly different. That's to promote airlines to fly into remote regions rather than anything else. Where you can't support an A320, where you need an ATR essentially,
Right.
or smaller.
Right.
Yeah.
That leads us actually into the next item, and this is probably all we have time for today. Let's talk about the recovery.
Mhm.
You guys seem to be doing much better in India in terms of the pandemic. Thank goodness. Remember, we had that. You guys ran off. What did you run into a cliff? How do the data just did
I was
unbelievable?
Yeah.
But that seemed to turn quickly. Thank goodness for that.
Well, I think we've just been lucky because, yes, that the cliff we ran into back in May was definitely about 70 or 100 times larger than it was on paper. So we have, as a country, as a community, possibly reached a stage of a very high immunity from the point of view that we may have all been affected and we just don't know it. And that's a real reality. So when you have people next door who've never even been exposed to anyone else falling to COVID, that it's much more prevalent than you expect.
Right.
And the vaccination drive, there's no doubt about it. In February this year, it was very difficult to get a shot, and there were lots of people trying all sorts of methods to get the shot. But now you can literally, in my hometown, we have buses outside driving around giving free shots to people who want them.
Right.
That's how, and that comes from our experience of dealing with not epidemics but other diseases like malaria. With we're just used to immunizing masses, polio, whatever it is. You grew up with.
Listen, it's a great thing. It's a great.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
About a week ago, I got on the same day at the same visit, I got a flu shot in the one side and I got my booster in the other side. And does this protect me? I don't know. But you've got to go to the motions. You've got to do what you've got to do.
Absolutely. I mean, we've never questioned any other disease so much as we have COVID. And if the fact of me getting one single shot allows me to travel the world, I would do that. That's my inspiration. I'm not the type to sit in a bubble and say, worry about what's going into my body or not. As long as it empowers me to live my life the way I want to live it, I will take that shot. So that's.
And just to circle around to the domestic recovery, where we've sort of we briefly crossed the 80%, say 80% pre-COVID domestic number mark. I mean, the weekends are largely a lot busier than the weekdays because it's in mostly leisure traffic. So yeah, we seem to be doing well. Fingers crossed. People seem to have completely forgotten what we went through, and mask discipline is extremely lax. And I don't want to jinx it, but I am a nobody. But I do see another wave coming sometime soon. I'm not sure when, and I'm not sure if it's going to be as steep as the last one. But given the way people have sort of taken things for granted, there's definitely going to be another spike in COVID cases. And just like how it is in the UK, for that matter, or just anywhere else.
Or Russia. We've just come back to Russia. Yeah.
What's interesting about these sort of next wave, excuse me, is that the spike seems to be lower.
Let's hope so.
It doesn't go quite as high. Well, in the end, I don't know if this is a nice thing to say, on a family program, but at the end, you can do what you can do, and then the Darwin effect has to kick in. If you're going to be reluctant and you're going to be a Luddite, then if something happens, it happens. Everybody else is doing the best they can. And the interesting thing is that people have to realize that when you do these shots, it's not necessarily only for yourself. You're part of a system, a whole, a population. You don't want to be a carrier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a social responsibility. And yes, pharmaceutical companies will make a lot of money, but then they've always done that. So you're not, it's either you're choosing between the lesser of the evils, and you'd much rather go with something that's tried and tested and
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, it's just it's a no-brainer for me.
Yes, for me too.
Any last
And
thoughts, Vinny?
I'm sorry.
I'm going to give you a last thought today.
Oh, my last thoughts. Well, I'm just happy to have a conversation with you. It's been a while, and let's do this more often as we used to. And hopefully we'll have even better news for you next month.
Fantastic. Oh, by the way, are you either of you guys going to the Dubai Air Show?
No, I'm not.
Possibly.
Nitin,
I will probably be there, but I'm not sure which dates, but let's see.
All right, Nitin, please let's be in touch, because I've booked my ticket, I've booked my hotel. I haven't got my pass yet from the air show people, but okay, hopefully that comes in the next few days.
Those are very easy to get. I'm sorry, the Dubai Air Show, but access is fairly easy. It's a very good show, and they make sure that access is easy. So,
gentlemen, have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
thank you. You too.
thank you very much.
Bye.